Hello. Welcome to week 15. You all have been hard at it the past 2 or 3 weeks and completing discussion boards, completing huge assignments. So this week is a short week with Thanksgiving and take a breath. I'm going to release some information for you to have access to. But as far as a discussion board, as far as an activity, take a breath. It's Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family, enjoy your time. You put in a lot of hard work for this class. Next week will be the final week of class. We'll do some comprehensive summing up, and I'll also open the final exam where you can take it um, on your own time. And I haven't decided whether it's open or like open time frame or like within an hour or so. I'll probably make it within an hour, so you at least have like if you can like carve out an hour somewhere and make it happen. But next week will be our final week. Let's go ahead and look at module 15, and that way you can get on with your lives and your semester. And what I wanted to do, I tried to create a video to augment what we were doing last week. I have a lot of passion for the topic from last week, and I created one, and I didn't have a chance to really edit it or go back in and produce it. So it's just sitting out there, and I hate it. I was in Ranger Research Day, and I created a poster for that. So one of the things that you will find down here with the green, this is my poster presentation for Ranger Research Day. And I want to spend a little bit of time going over it and then just call this good. So what this comes from is a qualitative study. This is the first stab at a qualitative study I've ever had because it was required in my PhD program. So I had a counterpart who named Johnny Benz. You can see him referenced right here. He was a counterpart with me in this study. A lot of this here that I'm claiming sole authorship because I'm reflecting on things that he didn't. So, and it's fine. We did our project. We did our qualitative study, and we didn't publish it. He's done a poster off of this, and I'm doing a poster as well. So, well, I guess it's even Steven. It really could have been a better project. One of the things that made this really hard was that our professor insisted that we get this done in 16 weeks. And so we had to go through IRB, get approval. We had to write up things. I mean, it was really, really rushed, and we only had a sample size of two. So the qualitative method that we chose was a multiple case study design. And what that means is that you think case study, well, it's just one person. In this particular design, you have one case scenario. So in this scenario, the two participants were presented with a case where they're presented with a dilemma. And then we work through the narrative that they gave us, both me and Johnny. They gave us a narrative of how they worked through making a decision. So you're welcome to read through. I'm not going to get lost in the weeds on that. This is not a research class. The nuts and bolts of this, we purposely chose two Christian, well, they were LPCs that identified themselves as Christian online. And again, this goes back to the past week where there's research that shows that people who are more conservatively religious are more likely to be possibly discriminatory against people who are LGBTQ plus. So they had to we posed them a few questions. We gave them a hypothetical vignette where they referred a person who was gay, and they then decided whether or not they were going to counsel them or not. And so they both independently, and this is back that they had some time under their belt. So we had one that had practiced for 9 years, another one practiced for 5 years. This would have been they in their training, they wouldn't have had the 2014 Code of Ethics because this study actually took place in 2018. And so we were trying to find if, hey, did they actually know what bracketing was? Because we've had bracketing around for a little while now. You should be familiar with that. And what was cool about this is that independently, they didn't use the term bracketing, but independently, both identified that they would bracket their own beliefs for the benefit of the client. So that's what this goes into here. And those were the main findings of our study. However, there was some supplementary findings that we didn't really plan on. One of the findings that was surprising to us, and we would have liked to, if we had more time, uh, done another study, a grounded theory study, where you go through. So, grounded theory is where you try to find a process of so this is basically decision making, decision people would make. But we kind of stepped into this wasn't a grounded theory, but if you had like 10 or 15 or 20 participants and all asked them how they went about a process of changing a very prejudicial mindset to a less prejudicial mindset, because that's what both of them independently described as we went through how did they make up their minds. And so they both were white. They both were from Northwest Oklahoma. They both were Christian. One was male, one was female. One I would say is more conservatively religious than the other. I'd say the female was more religiously conservative based on her just a description of her belief systems. And again, these are just coming out through interviews, and we did have scripted questions. So we didn't ask this. But what both of them independently described was a process where they grew up in small rural communities that were largely white. They went to schools where they weren't, high schools, grade schools, where they weren't really exposed to any diversity. And when they got to college, when they got to the university, they actually interacted with other people and they had their worldviews shaped by this experience, by experiencing other people, empathic relationships where there's not a whole lot of pressure, but just making friends of people. First off, they said, well, first off, I got to college and I saw people of different races. And so both of them said they had these pre-existing ideas they carried in, but when they got to know people, they they said these pre-existing ideas went away. And their they paralleled the development of understanding that some of the things that they were taught or that their culture was teaching them was not accurate with people of color. And then they equated that with, oh, well, this also goes for people who are gay or lesbian. And so that they said that it was first, it, again, it was eerily similar the way that they described it. And so what I thought of was, in thinking about this, in their process of changing their prejudicial views, what I thought of was the contact hypothesis was just in especially how they equated, their assuaging their racial prejudices first, and then a parallel process of assuaging prejudices against people who are LGBT. I wouldn't say that they're all their prejudices are gone, but I would say that as far as acceptance goes of others, that did help. So again, we're thinking about the contact theory, contact hypothesis, Pettigrew and Trope, and the necessary ingredients to reduce prejudice. Um, and so again, you're welcome to read these quotes here in the content from again, these were, I went back and I looked at the interviews and the transcripts. So again, this is kind of cutting to the chase. You're welcome to read through this, but Allport's 1954 recommendations for decreasing prejudice: equal status, common goals shared by groups, cooperative interdependence, you work together toward goals. Allport wanted institutional authority support. Not all four are strictly necessary, given the work of Trope and Pettigrew. Again, this is this huge meta-analysis with 250,000 people, 514 studies, 94% of those studies have to, prejudice is decreased through contact. These folks have put in the time. Uh, but what Trope and Pettigrew talk about is contact should be sustained, personal, and collaborative. So think about the interviews that you did. Think about, what you worked on for this class. Hopefully it helped you. I haven't had a chance to read your interaction plans yet. Um, try to take another person's perspective, try to develop empathy. There's some other things in here. I want to cut to the chase because I don't want to take too much of your time, but please read through this. I think it's important. The last thing that I'll speak about is this Kolb's experiential learning in 1984. As an educator, this is something that I wasn't aware of until I went to get a PhD. And there's a model of teaching that you rely on experience. And there's Paulo Freire's praxis that depends on this model a little bit as well, where you learn through practice and you learn by doing. Kolb's experiential learning is is built on, okay, you go have an experience, you reflect, you have some reflective observation, you have some observations of that experience, then you sit back and think about it, and you have some abstract conceptualization, and then you go back and you do it again. You actively experiment, like, hey, is this idea right? So it's almost like you come to the concrete experience with your pre-existing ideas. You reflect on, okay, what is this experience like? Then you sit back and think about it. Did it match? Did it match what I thought it was? And then maybe you go back and you try again. So think about a relationship with a client. Think about sessions that you'll be having over and over and over again. And this experiential learning that you're going to have, and this process of decreasing prejudice. I'm hopeful that each one of you will continue to, I've been impressed by a lot of your work in this class. I'm hopeful that many of you will continue to lean into the areas where you don't feel comfortable. That's really my goal as a professor. If I can help you help others in a better way, I'm going to feel good about what we did here. So uh, I'll have more next week. Again, I appreciate your work and effort. I'll be seeing you soon on the video next week. So take care, take a break, enjoy your Thanksgiving.